Hello, my name is Bill Haley for Haley 2024, The Movements, Government Reform Ideas. This video is going to be on high-level federal employees, like the appointed ones where there's Senate confirmation, when they get investigated. We need to do some reforms on that because sometimes the investigations are taking too long, allowing damage to continue a long time and not letting a good person come in. It's also a difference between having political damage being done and over several election cycles while the investigation is slow walked. So let's go over this. So sometimes there needs to be correct legal proceedings, but that needs to be balanced with a timeliness of making sure this is done timely so it does not create longer political damage where it goes through another election cycle where the narrative is still somebody's under investigation, somebody's corrupt. Either they get their name cleared or they are out of office and their name is, they get convicted or the political and the public rules judgment on them. But let's get the information out there a lot faster. So the political damage is the biggest one. Sometimes the national security damage is significant enough, but the more important damage in most cases is the political damage. And we need to have a better balance between going slow to get it right and getting it done quickly to stop the damage from happening, to have the damage continue to happen. Many people would love for the political damage for the political enemy to continue year after year after year in a slow walk, and then they get acquitted and they said, oh, nothing's wrong with them. But for 3 or 4 election cycles, they got clobbered. They got much less votes because of that political scandal. And then somebody has to have a $5,000 fine and have a law license revoked or something. No, we need to have a much faster process so the more important political damage is not done over and over and over again, long term and prolonged. So let's go over this a little bit. There are currently many legal proceedings, and I wrote this about 2 or 3 years ago. The Russian collusion was pretty much wrapped up by then. They determined that Trump did nothing wrong, or at least what they're saying now is all he did wrong was obstruct justice, which means they didn't cooperate with prosecutors enough. Anyway, so he didn't do the Russian collusion that there was no evidence, or they concluded that he did not. But for several election cycles, the assumption was that he did. So the 2018 midterm elections, highly important, had the thought patterns in the minds of the voters that he had colluded with the Russians, or there was great question about that. Not having a faster conclusion to the investigation created much greater political damage than the national security that was possibly happened if the allegations were correct. So we needed to know right away. And even if if the allegations were correct, we needed to know right away so we can get a president who was compromised out of office and not have the power of the presidency for such a long time, dragging on and on for many months, if not years, so we can get somebody else into that office to hold that tremendous amount of power. So let's continue on a little bit. Now it's January 2023. We have all these classified document finds from Biden, Pence. In the summer of 2022, it was the Trump finding classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Sorry about that. So there's a lot going on, but when the investigations drag on and drag on, trying to do it right legally, it is wrong politically because the damage is political. The damage on the other side, let's say it's true. We need to know right away so we can actually take action and stop somebody from being in power. Obviously, Trump was out of power at that point, but he's running for office now. It's either hampering him in his election with 2 years left now, or it hampers other probable Republican people looking to be getting that nomination from jumping in. So there's damage going on right now because of a slow investigation. So whether Biden's guilty or not guilty, we need a better investigation, a faster investigation, so another Democrat can run in the Democrat nomination, or we could impeach, or whatever the case may be, whatever the proper solution is. We need faster resolution on this. The slow drag of slow rolling of these investigations taking years, it doesn't matter whether we get a good, honest report 10 years from now. Well, Biden will be dead, Trump will probably be dead because of their age or whatever, and it's not going to be it's not going to do anything at that point. The political damage is done. We have politicians before said, well, somebody didn't get elected, did he? Well, because it was an allegation, it was slow rolled through. I think it was Senator Stevens had an investigation. He lost his Senate seat, and then after he lost his Senate seat, the investigation came out and cleared him pretty much totally. Supreme Court 9-0, saying it was not a good investigation. They violated many constitutional principles. He really didn't do anything wrong, or what he did wrong was insignificant. Regardless, that slow roll of the investigation made somebody look guilty. It had major political damage. So there's a lot of investigations going on back and forth throughout. So let's keep on going here. The Trump-Russian conclusion created to do the political damage. That's the main damage going on. Now, if it was true, we needed to know right then and there to get him out of office right away. The investigation should have been wrapped up within a month. We needed to have enough investigators to do it within a month and get it taken care of. So somebody would not have so much power, or the ongoing political damage to the Trump and the Republicans at that point would not be continuing on from a slow roll investigation, cloud over the head type of thing about and not being able to get good legislation through. It affected the 2018, 2 years later, that election, because it was still a cloud over somebody's head. So let's continue going on. So it lasts several election cycles. The very slow Durham investigation. The Durham investigation is to investigate how the Russia collusion investigation even got started, because Bill Barr determined there was not enough evidence to even start that. So what's going on with that? Why is that taking 2, 3, 4 years to come out with anything, and it's still not even over with, and we only have a couple low-level people getting charged in that? That is not a good solution. That is not that does not give the political damage. That doesn't give any reparations to that. There's no reparations to the political damage 4 years later just by somebody going to prison for a few years, or losing their law license, or getting a $10,000 fine, or whatever the case may be. It's a slap on the wrist at the most. And many people will accept a slap on the wrist not to have the presidential candidate they don't want not in office. That's a good trade-off for most people. So political damage continues over several election cycles, and we have also political people in the investigation side, the FBI, the DOJ, doing significant damage over those several years. So we need that investigation. That investigation for the Durham is investigating the investigators. And when you slow roll it, those bad investigators get to stay on duty. And that's not good either. So political damage continues over several election cycles. It is not wise to hamper a federal employee because they have important work to do. They have, if they're a Senate, almost all federal employees have an important job to do. The secretaries and undersecretaries and any Senate approved person, they have an important job to do. Now, obviously, I'm more libertarian side. I want them not to do so much, but they have got a lot of responsibilities. They can do a lot of damage. They can do a lot of good. Regardless, they have a lot of power. So they need to, the justice needs to be done quickly and effectively. It is not wise to have a questionable federal employee stay on the job because they may do more significant harm with the power inherent in the government position. There is always a balance in the value of attaining the correct legal outcome with the value of a quick resolution. That quick resolution does two things. It corrects the political damage by giving a resolution, hopefully the correct resolution, and a long drawn out correct legal resolution where the damage is continuing on way too long. And if somebody's already out of office, or let's say somebody's already 80 years old and they get the resolution 10 years later and they're already passed away or whatever, what resolution are we really getting? What type of reparation? What type of solution are we getting? Again, there was a lot of just slaps on the wrist or dismissing of a case, and it just goes away. If we find out what happened with JFK in 1963, does it really matter in 1923? I mean, 2023, 70 years later, 60 years later, whatever the case may be? Does it really matter? No. Everybody who was in office is long dead now, or extremely old. There's always a balance in the value of attaining the correct legal outcome with the value of a quick resolution. Justice delay allows injustice to continue and not allowing a good person to take over to do the job correctly. The President of the United States was under a cloud of suspicion from 2017 through 2019. Then he was still under a cloud of suspicion constantly. The president was questioned and accused every time he communicated with the Attorney General or the FBI. A good president needs to be able to communicate with those people to protect this country from terrorist threats, from other domestic threats. And when you cannot communicate with the Attorney General or the FBI because you're under investigation by them, you cannot get your job done properly. Many legislative endeavors were greatly hampered, so a lot of legislation did not go through. The president did not have the support from his party like he might have otherwise if he was not under that cloud of suspicion, and other legislation probably would have got passed. Many Americans lost faith in the federal leadership on both sides of the political divide. In 2016, the 2016 election was called into doubt, and this was written before the 2020 election, and now it's 2023. The 2020 election was also called into doubt, very much so by some people. Now there's social media and the Democrats are saying that if you question the election, you are election denier, and it's the equivalent of an insurrection. They are calling you a horrible person. How dare you even attempt to call election into doubt, which is not a good sign for the country. And there is a potential for uncertainty in future elections. A lot of people don't trust elections coming up on both sides of the aisle. They think that Trump's going to cheat. They're clearly stating it. And the Democrats are clearly stating that, Democrats are stating that Trump's going to cheat, and Republicans are stating that the Democrats are going to cheat. And both of them have probably some decent reason to say what they're saying. So if there is ever enough evidence to start an investigation and a threshold needs to be set, dozens of investigators with significant authority should quickly take action within weeks to come to a conclusion. So where do we get these? I want to go to the state attorneys general. All the attorney generals from all the states, attorneys general from all the states need to come together and create a pool of, there's 50 of them, and there's Democrats, Republicans. You're going to be able to find somebody who does not have a conflict of interest. Too many people in the federal government has conflict of interest, and they have to do the best they can because that's all they have to draw from. When you have 50 attorneys general from the 50 states, you have a lot more to draw from that might not have that conflict of interest. You get 2 or 3 of each party, and you join together, and you can have people checking over each other. So, dozen investigators from significant authority should quickly take action within weeks to come to a conclusion. Senator Stevens, I talked about this as a case from about 10 years ago, lost the U.S. Senate race because he was under the lengthy investigation. The Supreme Court gave a 9-0 opinion stating the investigation abused their authority. If you look at the case, it was the cloud of suspicion over him, the allegations that made him lose that election. Without that cloud of suspicion, he would have very clearly won that election. He had won many elections before that with good margins, and this was not a good investigation. There was abuse of federal FBI and DOJ authority. The investigators significantly affected the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Momentous legislation was passed because of the senators that won that race. So that was a tremendous change in whether legislation got passed or not passed. There was lasting damage or progress depending on one's policy preference. The issue here is that the extended investigation had monumental impact. Given an increased level of authority to dozens of highly qualified investigators, so we want to give increased level of authority to dozens of highly qualified investigators. I want legislators from both parties to be able to appoint those 12 or so, those dozens of highly qualified investigators. So they come from both political parties with knowledge, with the ability to have knowledge about anything that's going on, so that it can't be hidden. And so you have both sides, bipartisan, and the prosecutors with the ability for quick action is better than a long drawn out investigation. So these investigators will have significant authority. We will get a judge from the federal bench that we take away all of his caseload and give him only this case, and he does oversight, he does warrants, he does everything that the federal judge should be able to do, but also he does significant investigation of the investigators in progress, not after the fact, but in progress, to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And with people and that judge being able to see everything with 100% of the things that the investigators are doing. If we're going to give them that level of authority, we need to have significant oversight over them. To be able to start an investigation of this kind, 70% of 20, so those 20 will be from both sides of the party. They will be nominated from all 50 of the state attorneys general, and they nominate the 20 that's going to be for that investigation. Then 70% of those, so what is that, 15, 14, something like that, and 14 of the attorneys general, they have to agree that the investigation needs to start, and then we put those investigators on. So those state attorneys generals pick people in their offices, the state offices, that have no conflict of interest, and they go up and they have significant authority to look into everything quickly. And again, that judge overseeing everything and everybody having significant oversight of what everybody else is doing. So we're going to do let's keep on reading so I don't get ahead of myself. Okay. If that threshold is met, so 70 attorneys general, 70%, so 14 of the 20 that are picked by the 50, if they decide that the threshold is met to start that investigation, then they appoint the investigators. The person under investigation is relieved of his or her duties for the duration of the investigation, and it's going to be a 21-day investigation. And 70% of the same attorneys general will need to sign off every 3 days to continue. So this cannot continue on for a long term. The state attorneys general has to keep on signing off every 3 days. Then on day 21, they need to start a trial or stop the investigation. So they need to be able to get into everything. All the regular rules of evidence, they need to be able to put speed signs on these things to speed things up. After 21-day investigation, 70% of the attorneys general should have the ability to require another Senate confirmation. So let's say they say there's not enough evidence here, but we are really troubled by what's going on. They can require another Senate confirmation. Higher level federal, or they can start a trial, and then the trial has to be quick. It cannot be a long, drawn out 2-year trial. It has to be within weeks. They have to have the evidence, present the evidence. The defense has to, defense will be given a lot of money for a high quality defense, and lawyers and the like. They don't have to use their own money because too many people being investigated. They get personally bankrupt by these federal investigations. So higher level. So maybe what we're talking about is the top 200 people in the federal government for the top 200, and then maybe below them will be another tier where you have another threshold to do some more stuff. Anyway, we'll need 70% of all 50 state attorney generals to sign off on the investigation. So the person being investigated will get high-level public defenders. Thus, have much higher reimbursement rates than the average public defender. We have seen federal employees financially ruined by needing an attorney for years. The ability of a prosecutor to bankrupt the person they are investigating with legal bills stretching out for years is a significant issue. So it has to go quick. The 70, because their families are being ruined at this time. When you're under investigation for years, you are not making the money you're supposed to. You're under major stress. Your family gets ruined. If it's 3 weeks, people can withstand that. If it's years, your money's being drained, and you cannot withstand that. And too many marriages get broken up. The 70% sign off of an investigation means that there needs to be significant evidence, and that it is high enough percentage of a sign off creates a substantial level of warrant authority. So when there's a 70% sign off, then they're going to have a lot better ability to get warrants to get information and require and go into the FBI and look at case files and look at stuff. A judge should be assigned full-time to the case with unhampered ability to see all information. Unhampered, all information in real time. All of the cases are taken away from him. That's his full-time job. It cannot be a 75-year-old person with not the attention span. This needs to be a fresh 40, 50-year-old who has that attention span that can put that 50, 60 hours a week in on this. To see the information and examine investigation tactics. So they need to be able to look at everything and see what's going on and make sure things are on up and up. In the Russia investigation, there are significant questions regarding investigators and prosecutor tactics. The attorneys general and the judge would embed investigators loyal to the AG and the judge to 100% examine the investigation. So again, they're full-time and they get people to go in there and investigate the investigators in real time during the investigation. The current system often can give investigators and prosecutors substantial unchecked power. Well, we want that high level of power, but we need an accountable with real-time oversight. There is often a need for that power. However, there is a need for constant and unfettered oversight of that power. The 11th, I proposed an amendment to the Constitution, the 11th proposed U.S. constitutional amendment. Here it is. The Attorney General of every state will make up a board overseeing the Federal Office of Inspector Generals. This board will create their own investigative agency and their own prosecutors. So we do not want the federal government investigating themselves. We need an outside board and a group of all the state attorneys general make up that board. And that's where those boards of 20 will come from. And they will have different policies on this, and they will make sure, and when they have their own investigative agency, they have their own judges as well, where they're full-time into looking at the tactics. Okay, this reform is dealing with the current system. Now, that's dealing with the current system. I created Haley 2024 reforms, and I created competitive governance. The rating system will be playing a bigger part in that. The oversight board, the law enforcement oversight board, the military oversight board, they will be playing military authorization agency, the law enforcement authorization agencies. Those will be playing significant roles in this. The rating systems will, their job is to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, but they also deal with fraud and abuse. And they have real investigators, the real court system to deal with that. So my system works better than even what my proposals for the current system. But because there's so many different representative bodies in competitive governances and the like. So let's keep on going. Law enforcement authorization sector would have ample authority to examine every aspect of police, judges, prosecutors' action and pull their power if abuse is found. Anybody within the new CRA structure, competitive governance structure, anybody with inherent government power has to have that power given to them by either the military authorization agency or the law enforcement authorization agency. That's everything from judges to police officers to prison guards to prosecutors to defense attorneys and the like. Also in the military, any naval officer, any branch of the military officer, any commander-in-chief, anybody in the commander structure, anybody with any power, ambassadors, everybody has to have that badge, that authority given to them by the representative body, military authorization agency. Okay, let's keep on going. Another significant improvement of the CRA structure, which is competitive governance structure, is the ability of a CRA, competitive regulatory agency, or a CRA sector board, which is another full governmental system, to quickly replace a questionable leader with another person with the same governing values. So if you try to get rid of somebody just because they are Democrat or Republican, well, with my new system, a Republican, if it's a Republican, most likely the Republican will replace them. If it's a Democrat, most likely a Democrat can replace them. So you can get rid of somebody without necessarily changing the party and having that as a big part of the problem, or having a problem of changing leadership. Currently, there is a need to wait until the next election for things to be solved. Well, not in the CRA structure. That can be done a lot faster. That delay can often create a desire for party loyalty of keeping a questionable person in power so the other party does not take over control. So we solve a lot of the problems from the current system. This reform would also apply to candidates for elected offices. A campaign is often short, so investigators are going to have a 3-week, very quick resolution. So investigators need to look at how much time is left in the campaign, how much damage it's going to do, to whether it's evidence for this or not, and then if there is enough evidence, then the investigation is quick, and the resolution is way before the election ends. Not dogging an election for 3 or 4, even 6 or 7 months. Often, some election is dogged by an investigation throughout most of the campaign of one sort or another. Voters' perception of candidates under investigation as likely guilty and their support is diminished. Therefore, the quick resolution is so important. The need for a speedy investigation is profound before an election. Each major political party should assign several lawyers that have 100% visibility of all data collected from investigators and prosecutors so that they can ensure a witch hunt is not conducted to harm a candidate. So if there's an investigation of a political candidate in an election, there needs to be a system. And my system is set up with the rating agencies and the rating system and competitive rating system and just many different aspects of it to be able to allow elections to continue on, either get rid of or clear somebody's name. Okay, a lot more is at Haley2024.org, but I just wanted to show you that I believe the CRA structure, competitive governance structure, is a lot better than the current system. But if we stay with the current system, we need a better, faster resolution. And I showed you a couple solutions to having that better, faster resolution and the benefits. And yeah, there are detriments to doing it that way too, but the benefits outweigh the risk by doing it faster. A lot more to see at Haley2024.org. Please consider a donation. Until the next video.